Welcome back to another episode. Today I'm going to start a brand new series and it's going to be called Video Game Memories. And this gives me the opportunity just to kind of go back into the past and discuss some of my favorite video game memories from over the years. Now this episode is the first episode and I want to go back to 1990. Pretty nostalgic year for myself. I remember I went on a vacation with my parents and we drove down to San Francisco. And basically as a kid, you know how it is. Sometimes you go on these scenic, trips with your parents, and they're boring. They're really boring. It's only later in life do you find that kind of stuff, fun and entertaining. But as a kid, you're just sitting in the back seat, kind of just wanting something exciting to do. And back then, I just got my TurboGrafx and I had my Genesis, and I wanted games for these machines. That's all I really wanted on this entire trip. So I remember we pulled into San Francisco, and my parents were cool. They took me to Alcatraz and all these great places. But what I wanted to do, I wanted to go to some video game stores. And back then, there wasn't really dedicated video game stores. There's places like Famicom Games and stuff like that. But basically, you'd have to go into electronics stores. And that's where they would sell some video games. And that's where I actually picked up a couple of games, and I want to talk about these. So, my first game I picked up, I was very excited about it. I think you all know by now I'm a huge Phantasy Star 1 fan. And looking at the back of the box of this, the dungeons looked exactly the same as Phantasy Star 1, and at the time that was amazing. And this game is for the TurboGrafx, and it is Double Dungeons. It's infamous for me now. It's really, really funny. And basically what it is a 3D dungeon game. And that's it. That's all it is. It's one of those old dungeon crawlers where you're just going through dungeon after dungeon, fighting monsters, gaining experience, getting better items, going to stores if you can find them, and rinse and repeat. Now, it's funny. Phantasy Star is my favorite game of all time, but Double Dungeons, when I brought it home, suddenly became my most hated game of all time. It's really actually pretty funny. I just couldn't stand it. I'd spent $70 on this game, something like that. And I was really expecting something great. Wow, I didn't get it. It was just so repetitive. It was so boring. And I remember it had split screens where you could play with your friends, so you could have, two players at the same time. I thought that would be amazing. It was boring. Nobody, and as a kid, you're really trying to get the most out of a video game. You know how that is. And I really tried, and I just ended up loathing this game. And it's become a funny game to me over the years. It's become one I kind of laugh at now. I always laugh at Double Dungeons. And I was excited all the way back on the trip. I'm like, I can't wait to get home and play Double Dungeons. Man, I didn't really know how it was going to play out, but it's kind of a nostalgia game now anyways. Now, in the same electronics store, there was another game. And it was for the Genesis, and I was looking for a fighting game at the time. I was looking for something I could kind of, play on my own type of thing. And I found EA's Electronic Arts Buddakan, the Martial Spirit. Wow, I was excited about this game. And this game to me seemed like a pre-Street Fighter game. And I was excited about it because you could use different weapons and all this kinds of stuff for like kung fu, karate, all of that. And you could fight against opponents or fight against, real opponents. But, again, just like Double Dungeons, I was excited all the way home, days of driving. We actually drove down to San Francisco. Days of driving, getting home. I must have looked at the box 1,000 times. And I imagined all these exciting experiences I was going to have, doing this amazing fighting game. Well, I got home, I slapped Buddakan in, and damn it, I was disappointed, sadly. I really, really was. And again, like Double Dungeons, I tried to like it. I put in every bit of effort into loving this game and trying to like it, but the controls were bad. They were terrible. They were unimaginably terrible. But I put hours into it trying to make it better than what it was. Years later, now I had to own a copy of Buddakan again. It just reminded me of that trip. Damn Buddakan. Now, there is a silver lining in this entire story. So I bought these two games, and I think I basically spent all of my money on that. And we were driving back from San Francisco, and we stopped at Toys R Us, and while I was there, I saw a game, and I didn't think this game was out yet. I just read about it in Nintendo Power at the time. And it was there, up there on the shelf, sitting there. I think it was a couple of days it was out. I'm not quite sure. It was just the first few weeks it was released. And that game was none other than the very first Final Fantasy 1. Now, this is actually my original copy of the game. It's got a bit of wear and tear, but this was one game that was sitting up there, and I begged my parents to buy me this game because I'd spent all my money on the other two. Thank God they were nice enough to buy me this game. And I must have looked at the instruction manual 1,000 times for this, looked at the fold-out map 1,000 times. All of these games I did. But somehow Final Fantasy really excited me. It was a role-playing game. And I just kind of played Dragon Warrior, and I was kind of itching for something new. I was itching for something new on the NES. And Final Fantasy was going to be it. And it's funny, I went home, and as I told you, these two games, not so much. But I put in Final Fantasy, a game that, was on a system that wasn't as good as, say, the Genesis or TurboGrafx. And it just went to show you the power and magic of the NES at the time, because Final Fantasy was just amazing. It was like nothing I'd played at the time. And it really captured my imagination, and I leveled up my characters insanely. I did every single thing you could do in the game. I loved every minute of it, and it's funny, that's like a wonderful summer for me. And the sun was shining outside, and I was inside playing Double Dungeons, Buddakan, but most notably Final Fantasy. And Final Fantasy was just wonderful, and I think we've come so far with Final Fantasy. We're on Final Fantasy, at this time, Final Fantasy 13. But it's amazingly nostalgic to look back on the original Final Fantasy. I just love it. It's amazing. I never forget that summer playing it, and it was incredible. And I didn't get a chance to play it again at that time till Final Fantasy 2, which was 4, and that was another amazing game. So, guys, I just wanted to share a little road trip I had with my parents back in the day, picking up a few games. Some of them not so good, some of them classic and memorable for all time. Incredible stuff. So anyways, guys, until next time.